So where I'd like to start the discussion would really be at the beginning. And as we go, please, if any of you want to interject, ask a question, take it someplace different, absolutely great. But at the beginning of the journey, I think it starts with selecting the right partner. So at that point, maybe a little bit about how you choose who the right partner is for you, and what type of criteria you look at in that regard. Hina, I know that's something that that's very front and center for you. So if you don't mind starting us off with your approach to that.
Sure, sure. So when you're thinking about from the ISV perspective, it's really about where your solution you want to target. Is it a specific industry? And in those industries, you've really got to go deeper and say, all the way from what the solution would look like to the customer to how would it get developed down to, that infrastructure, the tooling, which cloud capabilities, right? And so that whole aspect of who do we partner with can go fairly deep to assure that you've got kind of a full capability, right? You're not just enabling the application, but then you don't have the tooling. And so, for example, media entertainment will use very specific type of tooling to develop what they do versus another industry, right? So I think one of the things that I've really learned is that it's important to, from a solution perspective, go broad and deep on understanding what those key players are for developing the market or being able to play in that market that you want to play. And the other side of the partnership aspect is, and the ISV part may need to be done much earlier. The consulting partner aspect is really, I think about, again, where the values are, where the skills are, where there's presence. In choosing the right partner, I find the larger consulting partners, the global system integrators, have huge reach into the customers, from consulting, trusting, at that level, to the practice and all the way to delivery. But they can sometimes be slower. And so I like to mix it up with smaller size or mid-size consulting partners that may be more willing to invest in something new, be more nimble. You can team them up with the larger partners. So I tend to think about like the consulting partner strategy in those ways as well, right? And of course, there needs to be sponsorship and support and willingness to really do what it takes end to end, right, with you.
Nice, that makes sense. And I like the thought about having a mix in there where it's not always the same answer.
Yeah.
Erica, are there any particular things you look at in picking new partners and what you want to prioritize and what you look for?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think you have to think about your entire ecosystem holistically, right?
Yeah.
Because exactly as Hina said, we have many different types of partners across the ecosystem, from our global SIs to our regionals, to our ISVs, to our technology partners, to our service providers. How are they going to work together, first of all, is one thing, because in today's world, I don't think it's about a single partner for a single thing. I think most of our customer projects are demanding that multiple partners are showing up and working together and coming up with something. So how are they going to work together in the ecosystem? What are their growth ambitions? And are they willing to invest, right? It's expensive to start to partner with any of our companies, frankly. So how are they looking at investment? How are they looking at that return? What's their exit strategy? What does success mean to them? I think are all questions that you have to assess. And are they going to prioritize investing in you? Hina talked about the global systems integrators. How many other priority alliances do they have? Where are you going to stack rank? Are they going to continue to invest in building the capabilities for your projects? Brandy mentioned customer success, which is super important to us at ServiceNow. How do we make sure that the partner is focused on long-term success of the customer? And how do they do that? How do they ensure that? What's their focus on quality? How do they define quality if they're doing services work? So those are some of the things that go through our minds. And of course, every partner type is different as you evaluate them. I completely agree with Hina. For us, when we look at ISVs, it's what is your fit with our platform? Are you overlapping? Are you helping us to fill a gap? Are you accelerating the ability for us to position our product and platform in different ways? Are some of the things we look at. But for me, it's all about looking at it as a holistic ecosystem that can work together to serve your customers. And I think that's one of the biggest shifts we're experiencing in the partner world today.
Okay. Yep. And because the ecosystem is the play, I can't think of an industry or a company that would argue with it is really about the macro view of the full ecosystem. I know I said in the keynote is about the language without having at least a similar understanding of what are the drivers, to your point that you've just really articulated, Erica. If we don't have alignment around a definition of the partnership, which gives us some insight to how well will we be invested in, how capable are you, the ecosystem cannot reach maximum optimal output without those kind of critical needs being discussed. And it's a conversation.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Okay, moving forward a bit, once you've chosen a partner and you're trying to achieve that alignment, Christian, what are your favorite levers to really help get to that ideal of being highly aligned? Are there a couple things that you would really prioritize as the most urgent?
I think there was a great introduction here by Brandy on the whole life cycle and on the customer, and getting that customer first mindset is obviously vital for all of us. And therefore, really understanding the customer's mindset. Is this a strategic change? Is it an innovation? Is it something that he or she wants a whole broader ecosystem change in? Really determines a lot of how you want to partner up around it. As I think also was said by Hina. So I think we really need to kind of find out that customer journey and then really work together. As we all know, the earlier we get started, the more value we get, all of us, because we have aligned on our common value and have aligned. It's the worst thing is when we have to do things relatively late in the customer life cycle, that always gives troubles. So, and the last piece is probably managing information, and that actually is probably harder than to do. We think we manage the customer dialogue a lot from the good partnering we set up, but our customers are very digital, as all of us are, and therefore they very often see lots of great information coming elsewhere in the market, and you need to make sure that your digital communication is aligned to your in-person communication. That's some of the things we see very, very important, and why we are investing at SAP a lot around the whole digital journey for our partners and our customers and ourselves, of course.
So that consistency helps cut through the noise. Yeah,
it's very, very important.
Yeah.
Last piece is probably we have basically partners having a lot of sixth sense. They often want to double check things. So the thing about doing things internally and doing things with partners is really something that has to stop, because the partners knows rather soon if there's something that is misaligned.
Yeah. Hina, one point you'd brought up before was in getting alignment, aligning horizontally versus vertically has a lot of trade-offs. Can you talk to that and kind of some of the advantages of each approach?
No, Peter. So I think basically at the end of the day, your customers in some way they're vertically aligned and they're vertically oriented. What I find is that there are many solutions that really are horizontal in that you're doing a user profile to scale how you work on the web or the internet or mobile. But that example or the application can be very different for a financial service versus retail, And so it's really, I find it important to have solutions that can scale to multiple industries, but that you really talk about and align and speak the language of the vertical space and the value that it can see right in that. So that's some of there's of course generally there's some solutions, right? If you're working with an ISV in the financial services, it is totally vertical. But this was some of the learnings as you go deeper into a solution, is how do you, it likely aligns horizontally, but how do you position vertically is some thought. One thing I wanted to also add to what Christian was saying is that even though a solution may be very valuable, I think it's important to know, is the timing right? Is there some reason that the customer is going to have to act, right? If it's a change in some government policy that by this time frame, everyone's going to have to get from A to B, or if there's some other priorities they're focused on, again, due to government or something else. So I've also run into situations where there's a real value to a customer, real value in the solution, but the timing to market isn't exactly greatest. So that's just something I thought is important to think about.
Sure. So that's a lot of big picture alignment. Erica, I believe you had a point about driving that alignment out to the field and making sure that it's not just theory for corporate. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to hear my other panelists' thoughts on this, but I think getting the field to truly understand the value of partners is one of the biggest challenges that any company faces with partners. And I see some nodding of heads, which makes me feel good that we're not alone on it. And I think it starts with the positioning that I think a lot of the field, at least in my experience, sees partners as implementation capacity. Right. And when we think about the ecosystem that we're talking about, partners do way more than just show up and help deliver. And I think we all know that getting the field to embrace, we're calling it co-creation. That's a word that we've introduced, that we actually need our partner ecosystem to be creating new markets, introducing us to new buyer personas, getting us into sectors and industries that we couldn't otherwise, that there's a creation role that partners need to play, which it becomes incredibly important as you're expanding past your core product, right? If you think about ServiceNow's journey, I think most people would say, oh, you're an IT system, you're a ticketing system would be, the initial view, I think for most people. We see ourselves as an enterprise platform, right? Once we move past selling IT to our core buyer, the CIO or the IT professional, and really needed to expand, all of a sudden our field needed to realize we need the partner ecosystem to help us get into those new markets. But getting them to understand that it's truly a partnership. It has to work hand in hand. It's not a hand off. It's a show up together from the beginning, create the opportunity, create the market, and then work together to sell and then to deliver. That's the transition that needs to be created. And I think the earlier on you're working with the field to help evangelize what is the role of a partner, what are the different components of what a partner can do, and how do you embrace partners in those different ways, and then making sure your program, your processes, your policies, your technology supports all of that. To me, that's a huge shift. The earlier you get your field mindset right, the easier everything else becomes. Because once that friction with the field exists, I think it's very difficult to move past it.
The hard chain to remove, right? One of the things in just preparation for today, I was just thinking about the life cycle again, that one slide, and it talks about the standard operating procedures. So we have SOPs for sellers, but we don't necessarily standardize the procedures that are needed for each part of the ecosystem. So what you're saying, Erica, I completely concur. Salesforce, when we recognize that we first struggle with 80,000 employees, disproportionately a large part of that being in distribution, we struggle with mind share from the field. So one of the decisions we made in terms of managing our partner ecosystem is making sure we had a population of middle management that was reflective of real deep partnering expertise and really deep field expertise. Because to win more mind share of the seller was going to be critical. Like, without really helping the field understand the value, enabling was a waste of cycles Because if we just didn't have the mind share, we would have enabled still against lackluster types of outcomes. And so putting more procedure into place on how we define value, but in the term of the field, was a key learning. And it started with really populating, diversifying the population in the partner ecosystem, having more field-based population there.
May I just want to add that? So, Brandy, that was excellent. I see also, as all of us have our own technology platforms, those become very much the glue that allows the vertical and the horizontal to come together in a completely different way. And some of our early customers, I'm sure you have them as well, are becoming partners as well, because they started building an industry solution with a partner of ourselves. They build it out so well, they can now actually use it as a partner on our behalf. And therefore, that really changes the dynamic, that you have a customer that becomes a partner, and the technology that was really originally very industry specific suddenly start using a lot of horizontals. So there's a technology shift as our customers become software companies that are very interesting for all of us, because they will ask for different things than they did just 5 years ago.
Brandy, you had a related point about getting this alignment that was a bit counterintuitive in terms of how you want to negotiate the revenue and the how the money gets split up. Would you mind elaborating on that a bit?
Which part was counterintuitive? We had I and Hannah had a great conversation about.
Sure. When you're focused on parity as the desired goal.
Yeah. So parity as the desired goal, recognizing first the operating premise here is there is a different pass-through or partner net revenue that is targeted for the varied type of partners you engage with. So the premise has to be it's an ecosystem, meaning not one partner for one target market or customer. Many partners are needed to get to the desired outcome. And so parity first is absolutely contingent on recognizing everyone has a due share. Everyone has a varied and defined different share of the sale. However, to get to parity, the real challenge is the revenue science. How do we see revenue generation, and how do we align around our defined way we look at revenue, define revenue, book revenue, and then thus pass through revenue? If we don't have an agreement there, we can't achieve the really desired outcome. And parity becomes the channel by which we get to that shared alignment. I think that was the discussion we talked about. So here's an example. In healthcare, we have so many customers, health systems, that are operating at one negative margin at this point. Like 5 years ago, they had 5 years of cash, 3 years of cash. Today, they have, 6 months, a year worth of cash. And so the productivity of each employee, not just sellers in the context of what we're talking about today, but the productivity for each employee is a bigger KPI that we care about right now on behalf of our customer, because productivity per employee is the key ingredient to getting to parity for partner. Because there's so many partners that need to help health systems deliver with negative margins, that parity becomes, again, the channel by which we get that done. If we do not recognize that the health systems today have to find partners that understand the governmental impact of how they can go back and get credits for Medicare, how they can take $1 of investment but yield back $1.15 of output for health systems, if we don't have an understanding there, that becomes a way that we can say, hey, let's look at revenue share different, because the market is different. We're in a contract. We need you to target this market. But as we go new markets, maybe there's a different rev share that we need to entertain for the new target market that we need to embark on together. But it has to be a co-creation together, better together story. And I think Hannah said it in that conversation best. Sometimes we don't think about this early enough, and we take a mindset and we deploy it against what is tried and true, not recognizing that parity will enable us. It won't able us, it will enable us. So.
Nice. Erica, I saw you nodding quite a bit there. Did you have something you could add?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything to add to that. So I think it was very well said.
Great. Does everybody agree that that fair split really is the optimal?
I mean, I think like anything else, it's circumstantial. I mean, I think you always want to strive for parity. And I think, Brandy, that's what you're saying, right? You need to have that level of trust with the ecosystem. I think part of it comes down to transparency in terms of how it's going to work. You're engendering a sense of trust with the partners, but then you also have to have a degree of flexibility with regard to the circumstance and how you do it. And I think to me, that's sort of the key. And that's a bit of the premise of what we're bringing into the partner ecosystem. Is just, we're going to be fully transparent around how we do things, why, the rationale. We know situations are going to occur, and let's just have the ability to work together when we need to maneuver, deal with splits in a different way. And I think, Brandy, that's the spirit of what you're saying as well.
Yeah, what I am not saying is same share. Fair share is not the same as same share, right? So again, the concepts of equity and equality, it is not about same, and it surely is not about same comparative to last fiscal or two previous fiscals when we were together in a marketplace. It is really understanding how well do you understand the dynamic of the market by which we can say this negotiation has achieved parity, because we have different roles to play now, not same share, but the fair share of each of the particular.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's also important to know who's paying. There's so many solutions now that are about the government. Say, you're trying to improve road systems, or you're trying to improve the quality of the water that we're drinking. Well, what are the players that come into that and providing the service, but who's paying for it? Where's the budget's going to be? So in that whole aspect of kind of that fair parity of payments and revenue, it's also trying to be really clear and understand where the revenue will come from and where will it get sourced. Those are often complications that I've seen as well.
Okay, moving forward to another element of this, I wanted to focus on transparency and communication as part of the key to making the other parts work. And we'll start this one off with Christian. You brought up a point earlier about too much information really making it hard to work. How do you balance that and get the right message through effectively?
So first off, all of us knows in our respective companies, sorry, that partnering is a strategic issue, and it really starts from the very top, our CEOs, our board, to really communicate a partner-first strategy and consistently do it at every single instance, because the customers and the market reacts to it, and if we don't do that right, it really confuses it. Also, our executives rightly set the tone of where we're investing, where's our big bets in the market. And obviously the market, again, including our partners, really react strongly in that. So the next down, obviously, is that our communication in the business plans reflect that alignment, so that there's a direct linkage between the CEO agenda and what we are building up with the partners. And then once we have gotten the business plan, we get down to the actually daily execution, if I may call it, the programs, the projects. And we need, again, to make sure that the communication at that level aligned to the overall themes. It sounds very logical, but as we move through an organization that all of us has with 50,000 employees, you have a lot of super clever people that focus on super duper important things, but they are niche players in that play. So it is important sometimes that we go in and make sure that we still have a bigger story, and we don't suddenly sidetrack the whole discussion into some particular program and kind of distorts that. It generally works, but the partner sometimes, feels that they are getting too much information, and that is really where we as partner managers have to stay in and make sure that the communication path works, and we align the different expert groups accordingly.
Does anybody else want to build on keys to good communication?
I mean, I think Christian hit on a lot of it, but I do believe trust, transparency, as I mentioned earlier, absolutely key. We're using the word intimacy at ServiceNow to describe what we want the partner experience to be, which is really about the idea that there's no wall between us. And, it's easier said than done. But I think it is so important. And I think when you bring that spirit of intimacy into the partner ecosystem, then, communications will naturally follow, because you don't have to think differently about how you're communicating with the partner ecosystem. It's the same as you would communicate internally. And when you get to that point, that's when you truly have, right, a partnership, because you don't see the lines. And I don't say that flippantly. I think it's easy to say. I think it's very hard to do. You have to be extremely deliberate about it. But I think that's part of it, right? Is that you need to make sure that tone is set through every communication, every interaction you're having with the partners, until it just becomes the natural way that you engage with them. And it's a journey. You need the entire org to come on the journey. But I think that in today's world, if you really want to have a partnership versus a transactional relationship, that's what it takes.
That makes sense. It seems to link back very strongly to what Brandy was saying about having a common language. And linking that together. Okay, so the next topic is setting up the complementaries, and where does synergy and that joint value creation come from? If we're executing all the mechanics well, but we don't have that story of why we're the right fit for each other, it doesn't go as far as it could. Christian, is that something that you could speak on for a moment about how 1 + 1 gets more than 2?
Yes, I can. I want to really start off from where Erica ended with. It's a relationship thing. Everything with partners is really about people to people. We can put systems in place, we can put KPIs in place, we can do all kinds of great stuff. But if the trust is not there, or the personal relationship is not there, then it won't fly very long. So basically, the systems is a result of what we are setting up, and that is where, at least from SAP point of view, we have 2 technology stacks. To be very transparent, we have the old one, which is on premise, and then we have what we are selling today, which is the cloud. And our customers are still on that journey, as we're all aware of, and therefore, we really have twice the stack than most companies. And therefore we have a very interesting dynamics in to some degree, continuing supporting an on-premise world while transitioning them at the same time, while we obviously also have the new world. And therefore we have to think about things a little bit bipolar to make sure it's still one, even though it was architected in a different world 10, 15 years ago. And that gives some interesting dynamics in making that transition easy for our customers.
Actually, Hina, at AWS, is that something you see a lot, where people have a foot in both camps and they're still managing a lot of on-prem as they're moving towards you?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Right. There's a whole, and this would be in any cloud really. But, there's the phased approach of migration. When do we modernize? What parts do we modernize? Right. So it's not, anything's never really that clear cut. It's complex, and it's got to be worked out, a game plan that's going to deliver value to them and at lower risks, right? So, yeah. On this joint value prop topic, I've certainly seen where a partner has created an asset or a capability that actually overlaps with something, a service that you have. And so then it becomes really important to clearly position. Okay, when are you going to position us versus when will you lead with your own solution? And so that whole aspect of joint value prop, you've got to think about what else is there that they may have some priorities over, right, as well. Just yeah, something to think about.
It needs to be discussed, right? So that's just seeped in the degree of transparency you have with that partner. I've been in relationships where partners didn't disclose acquisitions that were already pending, less long capabilities that are competing, that we know are competing in the marketplace as well. And it becomes it just becomes a limiting factor for how the market's needs are met. when we, company and partner, can't find our way to transparency.
No, that makes sense. Erica, I wanted to ask you about partner experience and how to make that good and how that helps drive the relationship forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think the partner experience is everything. And it starts with having a North Star. As I said, at ServiceNow, our North Star is intimacy. It's the word we're anchored on. It's how we measure ourselves in everything. And, then the key is once you define what you want the partner experience to be, you set that North Star, you set that vision, then it's about making sure that every interaction with the partners reflects that vision. And that's where it's hard, right? Because it's every part of your partner technology infrastructure, from your portal to your systems, every process from deal registration, if you have it, to how you track deployments and everything in between, every policy that you put in place, every communication. How are you reinforcing and coming back to that partner experience and asking yourself, are you bringing that partner experience to bear? I mean, we're in the process of launching a new partner program in January. We're redoing all of our partner guides. And it's fascinating looking at our guides today, which are very transactional in nature, if I'm to be critical, and trying to think about how we want it to reflect the new partner experience moving forward, which is more welcoming, more engaging, more, hey, we're in this together. We're so excited for you to be here, to reflect how we really feel about the experience we want to create for them. And it's just one tactical example of how you have to carry that experience all the way through, right? I think a lot of companies do a good job at defining it, stating it maybe, but then actually bringing it to light and staying committed to it and asking yourself, does this decision reflect the kind of experience we want to create? Or where it doesn't, because the environment forces you to act differently, acknowledging that. And that goes back to transparency with the partners and saying, I know this doesn't reflect the kind of experience we want to create, but let me at least be transparent in terms of what's going on. And it's that level of commitment that I think is needed. That's absolutely what we're striving to create here at ServiceNow.
I think that's great. And I love the be honest when there's a mistake. With any customer service thing, if someone does a great job of fixing your issue, it's almost better than not having the issue, because you know that they're adaptive and they're really focused on it. It wasn't just that it happened to go smoothly. So that is a great opportunity. But I imagine it's even tougher with existing customers that have already been working for a couple of years with one set of expectations to get to that level and change their perspective.
Yeah.
Peter, I was going to say, or not a mistake, right? So even if it's not a mistake, if a decision has been made, which means and mandates that we have to behave differently in the marketplace together, just the transparency of saying, here, we will fall short of our transparency KPIs, our intimacy KPIs, as Erica said. If we fall short, here's why we will. Here's what's causing that, but here's our path back to a relationship based in intimacy and transparency for these reasons. It's courage. Yeah,
that makes sense. So part of making sure that we align for a great partner experience is focusing on shared goals and where we want to get at the end of this instead of the activities along the way. Hina, is that, could you speak to that a little bit and the importance of having that shared endpoint?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's got to be, ultimately, it's about revenue, right? And it's about building a pipeline. But in order to get there, there's aspects that have to happen. It's about enabling delivery teams, practice teams, sales teams. It's really saying, okay, how are we going to get there, right? To the pipeline and the customers, but to assure that, okay, is there going to be campaigns we're going to run? Is there investment both sides are going to bring to the table? How often are we going to check and see how we're doing against each other, the what each other is going to bring to the table. So yeah, it's shared goals that get clearly defined at the end, but how do you execute? And those are also shared goals, right? I see them to get to those objectives.
Sure. Okay, let's keep moving forward towards due diligence and metrics. How do we make sure that this is working the way we want it to? A couple of people have mentioned KPIs that they've been using. Christian, I'd love to start with you, especially about what makes it hard to get the due diligence part of this right.
Well, it shouldn't be hard, right? There's two places where you do due diligence, right? That's first when you get a new partner on board, and the second one, you have to do it for legality reasons every number of years, and then you go back and ask them the same question they did when they became a partner. But all of us has global brands. All our customers has global brands. We cannot have the risk that we have a partner who does things unethically, legally, financially, or what else it may be. So when you approach it from that point of view, it just becomes common sense. There's a standard process. We laid out that, this is now up for renewal. We need to do the due diligence, and here's the process we'll take you through. Please send us these documents. We'll do these things in addition on our side, and we'll have a meeting. And hopefully everything is green throughout the process and everything is good, and we can focus back on business again. Then obviously there's sometimes, discussions that have to be had, but those are, again, the right ones to have, because you certainly don't want not to address them. That can only get worse down the road. Definitely.
Brandy, do you have a similar process?
Yeah, we do. Diligence is done at 3 points. It's done when we onboard a new potential partner. We do that at renewals, but we also do diligence by industry. So back to what Hina was saying, our customers are vertically oriented. So there's a diligence needed for each industry. And so there's a degree of diligence that's kind of an intermediary step. A great example of that in healthcare would be where is the anti-kickback line, and how do we approach partnership to not breach that line, right? Very fun diligence. I mean, it's probably the most interesting part of the diligence process. And in terms of what I just shared, Christian just shared, was of course, you want to make sure that corruption is not taking place. But beyond corruption, in the diligence process, I think what tends to be uncovered that's really good for both parties is you're able to understand their 5-year strategy, their 3 and 5 year strategy, because their diligence answers help you meet immediate needs, but it helps you understand what markets they're going to next. And so that became really insightful for us. Oh, this is where you're going in the next 5 years, which is why in this diligence phase of our onboarding, we either can work or will not work because of where you're going in the future. And I thought it became really enlightening when we thought about like post-pandemic, right? So the diligence of how we bring on partners right now in a post-pandemic world in the healthcare context is a real big indicator to how do we use partners in the most effective market entries at the most appropriate time.
Excellent. Hina, do you have any advice on what the right metrics, the right governance, how you monitor a program and make sure it's working and that it's still doing what you need it to?
Yes. So first, I think, as I said, there's a budget aspect, there's a marketing aspects, there's a technical aspects, sales, and it's important to define what is it that we want to achieve, what each party will do and bring to the table. And honestly, like it's quarterly updates. Sponsorship, I find, is key because that enables commitment on both sides, and any issues that may have that we need to speed track to fix and things of that sort. But I think it's just mostly often tackle, simple, tackling, right? And having clarity in every aspect, and assuring that those participants are there and we're able to manage to that. and act as soon as it looks like there are concerns or issues. Sometimes I find that a company will be really, really aggressive in saying they want to align all the way up top, or, and it sounds wonderful, but then you come to find out that kind of short term, where they're focused and where their skills, where their relationships are, doesn't align well, even though they are very invested. And so you have to look for those things and catch them early too, Peter, and be able to say, wow, we might want to not do this anymore for a while, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Great. So moving forward, part of how we execute all of this, and especially at the scale that you're all working, is having the right tools supporting these principles. Erica, perhaps you could start us off with some of what you think the most valuable parts of that technology contribution to getting partnerships right would be.
Oh, there's so many parts of it, right? I mean, there's the portal, which we view as the collaboration gateway. There's the PRM, the partner relationship management system, which really manages all the processes with the partners. There's just general integration with your sales tracking, whatever you use, to your CRM system, your CPQ system, to make sure that everything you're doing with partners could be integrated into everything you're doing with broader go-to-market. That's absolutely key. To me, those would be the top three components that are a must, that have to go together seamlessly. And then it's, other technologies, ways to constantly assess how your partners are feeling, just like survey mechanisms so that you can continue to take a pulse on the partner community, having, just other communication vehicles outside of the portal that you can use to communicate with your partners. But for me, the portal, the PRM, the integration with your sales technologies would be my top three that are an absolute must that you have to focus on.
That makes sense.
Yeah, may I maybe add two dimensions, at least SAP is working hard on, which is obviously the whole software selling, right? Our partners sell our software, they build their industry solutions. So I see a lot of focus going in to make sure our partners are successful building on our technology stack. And we're really, investing a lot to make sure their campaigns work. We help them with marketing and sales involvement and all that, which is, a platform, at least in our side, on its own. And then the second piece, which I find even more interesting, is really we can now start seeing our customers live operating. AVS, you could do that from day one, but how are they using our software? Are they consuming more or less than we expected, and so forth? And then actually now getting the partner tied into that, which partners are running these programs. And that gives you a complete different perception of what is their skills level. Are they really doing as much integration work, or are they doing more data work, or are they doing more deep development work and so forth, which allows for different business plan discussions once we have that insight from our deployment projects, which is quite interesting, because some of the partners are a bit surprised themselves when we show them some of the data we can see from their total business with SAP.
Yeah, that's kind of automatic transparency. That's a bit of the ultimate of that, right?
Yeah, and it shows, the most interesting one is obviously, right, we want to close, we sold X and we have deployed Y. How do we minimize X and Y so it nearly is the same number? And that is kind of the front end of where SAP is discussing with our partners right now. How do we make that a very transparent process? And obviously the customer is deciding that. We can't just tell the partner to go and implement if the customer's not ready for it, right? So it's an interesting dialogue. So
Brandy, one thing Erica mentioned was specifically the integration of the partner management into CRM. Is there something on that you'd like to expand on?
I think this is where ServiceNow and Salesforce really could be competing brands, but we're really aligned in that thought process. And I don't know that it's integration, because hopefully it's the same system. You know, there's intimacy in that component of the strategy, right? But one thing Christian just said, which is key, is parity, right? So you sold X, you are deploying Y. The goal isn't to get it the same. The goal is to be ready when the customer is ready, so the ingestment is appropriate. Back to parity. How do you define what is the appropriate speed by which what we sold is what is deployed? So just the double click on kind of what Christian said is so important. And thanks to the partnership we have with AWS, that real-time transparency is achieved at Salesforce, but then how do we define it to make sure we have a good partner strategy is where parity becomes paramount. But I agree. ServiceNow is a great company to watch. I hope they feel the same about Salesforce, but it's a great company to recognize that, a partner relationship management with the CRM alongside the portal, and then that deployment in an integrated fashion is the only way to get to an ecosystem. I don't know another way. If there's an expert on panel somewhere that can help us see it different, I'm ready and willing to expand my thoughts, but I don't have more to add there because, like I said, I think Salesforce and ServiceNow are very aligned in the thinking there. Yeah.
When you said that, I just started picturing someone trying to manage it all through spreadsheets, and there's someone out there doing that, but it's gotta hurt.
Gotta hurt. This is going to sound cheesy. This is not planned, but I think the nuance becomes, a critical acquisition that Salesforce made with Slack. Because the collaboration, or the way Erica said it was communication, that becomes an area of nuance that does make for a different partner relationship if you operate in said platform. And that's a limiting factor because of attrition, or that's a limit because it's not real time. Slack that has enabled us to have a digital HQ with every partner, regardless if that partner has 15 other competitors. That is in everybody's home, not Zoom, that it's not a limiting factor. There's no limitation to us communicating when you embrace a Slack that is completely agnostic to all of that. So I hope that was clear. I tried to be as encrypted as I could with that answer.
Excellent. So we've covered a lot of execution. I'd love to talk about innovation through partnerships for a few minutes before we run out of time. Hina, would you like to start us off with how to get innovation?
Innovation with partners. Good point. Let's see. So, in kind of as we're doing day-to-day partnerships, to me, it's about where is the customer, where is it that the customer needs to go? And how do we get there? So one methodology that I really wrap myself and really focus and invest on is, for example, claims processing or something in insurance, right? They're doing that on-prem. Let's think about this with the partner. How do we take this asset, this capability that you have, but really modernize it, innovate it with leveraging the latest capabilities, such that now it's very, very different. It supports from an innovation perspective. So part of it is really the way I work with partners on this, not so much ISVs, but consulting partners, is to say, what is it that they might have already, or where's the customer trying to go? And are there assets and accelerators that could be created that help get halfway there with the customer? And then it's something that's repeatable successfully, right? Whether it be in one industry or multiple industries. So that's one approach to innovation that I've found to work well, and it's interesting. It takes some investment, but I've seen really positive results from that approach.
Nice. Christian, you had mentioned that you've seen some changes in the innovation priorities recently. Could you share some of that?
Yeah, I think I can. the market is different, right? We also meet customers who are, having to revise their budget a couple of times this year because the world is just different than it expected to be 12 months ago. So we see that innovation budgets generally are also a little more scrutinized, or scrutinized somewhat harder. So let's say AI. AI has been, a top of mind innovation topic for at least a couple of years. And I think we see more and more asking for embedded AI. We know we can do something with cool machine learning, and we can go to AWS, we can go to others. But do you have some proof point? Do you have something working? Maybe not exactly for my industry, but can you showcase some evidence that you have done the whole 9 yards? So we see that customers are asking for more proof, and not just, you have the greatest slides and you have all the right data scientists, go build. But really, can you show that you have done something? So they're taking a more, yes, you may be able to do it, but if someone has done half of it already, then I would probably just go with the half of it and hope they can configure it, because in that case, I can maybe get there in 6 months instead of 12 months. So the time to value is becoming very, very critical, also for innovation, and they would a little less risk, or they're more risk adverse is the word, than they used to be, in my view.
That makes sense. It's almost like not innovating is its own risk, though. So it's kind of shaping how they do it more than stopping it, right?
Yeah, there's come more budget constraints on the innovation than there was 12 months ago, and the business scrutiny. We want to have this, go make it happen. How much can you make happen in 6 months? And there's a business urgency now.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm very guilty of sitting in theory on this one. So this is Ivy Tower type of answer, but just not to forget that many of the partners are in the startup phase, right? So startup phase is the phase of a life cycle where their time to value isn't yet defined. They want to sell you that that's the time to value. But if they haven't expanded to multiple product offerings or multiple geos, they haven't really refined the time to market, which you can't then, as a potential company, take as a reliable input. So it's just, what is your risk tolerance to understand that this partner can touch a part of the market we can't yet? Their innovations, in theory, hit the market we want to go after. What is our risk tolerance, knowing where they are in their life cycle? I think sometimes we forget in partners that we are dealing with a lot of startups. And the new product may not be then the equation of startup. It may be expansion. They may be actually at a different place in their life cycle, which reduces our risk. So
yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, I want to add something else, Peter. Innovation can also be something about creating a whole new market. And we often will see a company doing that on their own and then really trying to build an ecosystem from there, right? But imagine if there's innovation and ideas where multiple companies can invest, and that aspect of what comes together is so much bigger, right? One example of that I was involved in was with the cell processor, which went into the Sony PlayStation. It was about a $400 million joint investment between Sony, IBM, and Toshiba. And each had product plans to, how to use that technology that was going to be created together. And so those are the type of things that I think there needs to be more of, to the extreme extent on partnerships. And imagine what we could do, right, if we were able to invest in a bigger way together.
Definitely. And that's probably a great note to wrap it up. I know we're just about at time. I've appreciated speaking with all of you very much. This has been very educational for me, and I hope you got a lot out of it as well. I love the strength that some of these common themes are coming through, where it's not a zero-sum game. It's not people trying to win. It really is investing in communication, being totally open, because that's where the most value is created, and wanting a great experience for everybody involved, the partners, the customer. It really is focusing on making everybody win. And as Hina said, once you get that down, anything's possible. So I look forward to hearing more about how all of how all of you progress from here.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. A pleasure to do this with you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you from my side as well. Thank you.
Thank you.